Alright, welcome back, boys and girls. Today we're going to show you my favorite settings, especially for cinematic video, using a GoPro Hero 6. Now, first thing I'm going to do, because this camera is used, I did an unboxing on it not too long ago, we're going to go all the way down here in the preferences menu to factory reset. We're going to set this thing back to factory reset. In other words, I'm going to show you how you're going to get your camera. You're going to get your camera like this, as the factory sent it to you. It'll get out of this in just a second and take me into, this is how, you're not going to get a screen, you're going to get that right there. As soon as you turn your GoPro on, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go to English or whatever language you want. Agree to the terms. You will not get in if you don't. I turn GPS on. That's up to you. It takes you through a little tutorial here, and you can just swipe to get to the next tutorial. Okay, it shows you how to do things. Eventually you'll come to this screen, just hit ready, and it's going to want to hook up to a Wi-Fi. I don't do that just yet. Now it's going to want you to set up the date. It's March 30th, so 18, hit the check mark. Time, right now it's 1 o'clock. All the way down. You can only go in one direction of this, and then hit the check mark. Alright, that gives you the time and the date. Brings up your first screen, which is always in default mode, is your video, because this is mainly a video camera. It's going to come to you factory preset at 1080 resolution. Never shoot in 1080 unless you want ultra slow motion. GoPro or YouTube uploads at 1080, so you always want to shoot higher than 1080 so that you can allow for some cropping or some post editing, stabilization in post. Now, everybody says, always shoot 4K, always shoot 4K. I don't do that. I really don't. For one thing, 4K slows my computer down so much, and I really don't notice a difference between 4K and 2.7K. And in 4K, you do not have all the features that you have in 2.7K. In 4K, I can only shoot up to 60 frames per second, which is okay for slow motion, it really is. But whenever you've got a camera that will shoot 120 frames per second and then 240 frames per second, take advantage of it. Trust me, folks. I always shoot in 2.7K unless I'm shooting that ultra slow motion with 240 frames per second. Now, check this out. I can shoot, see how these are highlighted white and this one's not? I cannot shoot in 240 frames per second in 2.7K, but I can shoot 120 frames per second in 2.7K. That makes another slow motion video excellent, because I'm getting the high quality resolution and I'm getting a lot of frames per second, which makes for a seamless slow motion. It's a GoPro. This is the only option I've got when I shoot 120 is wide. It's the only option. Okay, so if I take it down to my cinematic settings, if I don't want to do slow motion, I'll shoot at 24 frames per second. That's cinematic quality is what that is. Then I have advantage of super wide and linear. Super wide, you can see the whole screen. You can see all the way from over here to the desk, all the way to there. Wide, you can see crops it a little bit, and then linear crops it even more. But with linear, you've got a zoom in. So let's say you've got a puffin on the end of a cliff and you're in Iceland. Zoom in on that puffin using linear. But it's a GoPro. I tend to shoot in super view more than I shoot in any other setting, but you have the options there just as easy. Okay, you can get out of a certain screen just by clicking the on-off switch once. You get your thumb to do it. Okay, now I got it in super view. I got it 24 frames per second, which is absolutely the best frames per second on the market. It's a European model, and Europeans know a lot. Trust me, they're very intelligent. 2.7K resolution, but I want more features. I want more. Swipe it from left to right, you end up with what's called Pro Tune, and that's your manual settings. Always click Pro Tune on, then you can control things. Now, I'm going to go through these in order. I do not shoot in auto unless I'm in a very strange lighting situation. I tend to shoot 1/48th of a second. Now, why do I do that? Because it's the 2-to-1 ratio. You want your shutter speed to be twice the rate of the frames per second. That is proper cinematic shots. You have to learn that. That is a known feature, has been for years, decades. Remember, the shutter speed, the time that the camera allows light to hit the sensor, in this case, film in the old days, has to be twice that of the frames per second. So if your frames per second is the European model at 24 frames per second, your shutter speed has to be at 1/48th. And that will make the best cinematic shot you can come up with. Trust me. Now, ISO minimum on every camera, always set it at 100 or even lower. If it goes to 25, set it at 25. You want that lowest ISO. The ISO max, never go over 800. That's just a good rule of thumb to remember, especially in a GoPro. If you are in a dire situation to where you have to shoot at 1600 or 3200, you can. But for the most part, I do not ever go over 1/800th of a second. Your white balance, I never shoot in auto. If you're doing a time lapse or something different, your white balance will change on you because it automatically changes. Shoot in native, or pick one of the color temperatures. 3500, somewhere around there, 4000, even 6000 is okay, but I always shoot native. GoPro, by default, sets their sharpness on every setting on this camera, video, photo, burst, and time-lapse, to high. In the name of God, GoPro, stop it. High is a very low quality. It peaks out. I tend to shoot in medium or low, depending on my shot. I tend to shoot in GoPro color, but I do shoot in flat occasionally. I will explain in a minute. The audio I keep off, and you have a chance of doing a raw audio track and make it high, medium, or low. I don't use the audio in a GoPro. The audio in a GoPro sucks. I only use it for ambiance noise. Like if I'm by a sea, I'll make the sea part of it. But I do not use the GoPro audio. I use a little external mic, ceramic mic or something, for the audio. Okay, the difference between color and flat. GoPro color is bright, vivid, and saturated, and has a good dynamic curve. Flat has an even more dynamic curve, but it's less saturated. So if you shoot in flat, you're going to need to do post-production. Now, if I'm in Iceland, I traveled halfway around the world, and I'm in that colorful desert with a lot of bright colors, I'm going to shoot it flat. Even though it's going to look poor in my monitor, I know that I'm going to come back in post in Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere Elements, Final Cut, there's a couple others, but I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and I'm going to up those colors. I'm going to rich those colors out. The reason I shoot in flat, it has a wider dynamic range. It will capture detail in the shadows. It will capture detail in the highlights. It's wider sense of curve, so I'm capturing those details, which I can bring out later in post. But for the most part, I tend to shoot in GoPro color. If I got that one-of-a-kind shot that I really want perfect, and I know I'm going to be editing later, I'll shoot in flat. When I shoot in flat, I will take the sharpness down to low, and I will edit it later. and that's my cinematic shot. It's just a choice of your quality. This makes for a quicker shot, easier to edit, faster. For most average shots, it's what I use. For that real special shot where I've got a bright overhead sun and it's creating harsh shadows and it's creating high highlights, I'll take it to flat. Alright, see these 3 little dots on the right? That means there's windows off to the side here. So scroll it that way. Always turn your video stabilization on unless you're using a Fiutech G5 gimbal or one of the 3 axle gimbals. I've got a G5 Fiutech, and I use it more on my Action Cam than I do my I use the video stabilizer in this. Auto low light, I only use that if I'm in low light. I rarely shoot with a GoPro at low light because they're not great for low light. I tend to shoot a DSLR, Nikon D500 for low light. Manual audio control, I keep it off because, once again, if you're depending on the audio in a GoPro, you're going to get some pretty bad audio. Right now I'm using a desk microphone, and I've got several microphones I'm going to be showing you here in just a minute. Okay, swipe it back, make sure video stabilization's on, make sure your settings are correct. If they look like that's what I set up with. Then you can change your mode from photo or from camera to photo, and once again you can go into preferences and go through all your preferences, make sure they're set right. You can always click the off on button to get back to the default screen, and then you go to Pro Tune, turn Pro Tune on. Now with photo, I tend to shoot with my shutter on automatic because I want the camera to have control of the exposure. Never shoot with a 32 ISO. That's insane. I don't even know why they put such high ISOs on cameras. Always shoot with a maximum of 800. I rarely shoot 800. I don't like shooting 800. White balance, once again, go to native. It's the best one in this particular camera. Sharpness, take it off of high, put it on medium if you're shooting in GoPro, and put it on low if you're shooting in flat for that real special shot. 2 more windows over here, auto HDR. This is good for that real dynamic shot, like if you're in a dark barn and there's a light window over here and you've got a lot of light coming in from the window and it's burning, and you got the shadows over here and they're drowning. You can turn on this and it'll widen that dynamic range up a lot. RAW format, if you've got the memory, go for it. You've got the quality of photo, go for it in RAW format. I tend not to use it unless I'm in that real special place. Okay, then you can go to burst mode. Burst mode takes a series of pictures. Like, let's say your son is on the plate on home base. He's fixing to get pitched up. Focus here. There we go. Let's say your son's on home base and he's fixing to get pitched. Put it on burst mode, and you can choose how many frames. Let's say your kid is, he shoots about 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds for the ball. You can take 30 frames in 2 seconds if your kid doing it just by clicking 32. What that does is that shoots 30 frames in 2 seconds when I push the button. That makes for like a motor drive kind of thing. Now, I don't shoot 30 frames. One thing, I don't want that to go on my memory. I'm in Pro Tune. I'm trying to hit that little button there. There it goes. I tend to shoot 3 in 1 second. The reason I do that, if I'm in burst mode, I usually do selfies in burst mode. I'll take 3 selfies at one time. That way I know one of them's going to be good. But burst mode is good for 10 frames in 2 seconds, 10 frames in 3 seconds, and that's real good for like action. Okay. Now you can go to Pro Tune on burst mode because it comes in factory default. I don't recommend it because it's got that sharpness on high. I recommend taking that sharpness down to medium. I recommend taking that ISO down to 800, top ISO. I recommend taking that white balance to native. And this is in all these controls. You've got advantage of these features, take advantage of them. And then I tend to shoot in GoPro, and I tend not to mess with my EV comp unless it's that special shot that I sort of have to. Okay, now we can go to time-lapse. Time-lapse photo. It's set automatically at 2 shots per, or the interval of the shot, a half a second. I rarely shoot a time-lapse like that. My time-lapses are typically shot in intervals of 1 second. For a hyperlapse, that's fairly short. 2 seconds for a hyperlapse that's a long walk or a long adventure. I rarely shoot hyperlapses in 5 and 10 seconds. It makes too much of a stuttery noise, or it's too stuttery. I tend to shoot 5 and 10 seconds for slow moving clouds, 2 seconds for fast moving clouds, 30 seconds and 60 seconds. I've never done a time lapse like that. That would be for something like a plant growing, a seed busting out of the ground, or something like that. I tend to shoot at 1 or 2 frames per interval. In other words, it'll shoot a picture every 2 seconds. Once again, go to Pro Tune, turn it on, take advantage of this Pro Tune. And what it means is, I'm the pro, and I'm tuning the camera my way. That's right, bitches. GoPro operates under my rules. Once again, check that ISO down to 800, max ISO. Turn the white balance to native. Sharpness medium if you're shooting in GoPro, and low if you're shooting in flat. Now you can shoot low in GoPro and still get a good quality, but I like the look of the medium. I don't usually shoot in RAW format unless it's that real special shot. And that's it, folks. Now I want to show you a couple of other things about the GoPro. Okay, I wanted to show you another little feature about the GoPro. Let's turn it around here. Now, let's say you got a floaty on the back of your camera and you don't have access to your back window. You can access the controls by pushing it on the button, keeping it pushed in, and then push the shutter button. And it brings up a primitive manual menu. This reminds me of the old GoPros. That's how we used to operate them in the back before they had the back LED screen. You can control the where it goes, like that's in camera mode or video mode. You can change the 2.7 and then click the shutter button, and it'll change it to another setting. You can change the frame rate, you change the field of view, and then all these other change. And you can do this in any of the modes. You can go all the way through all the settings just in a manual way. If you can click down here to done and click the shutter button, it takes you back to the regular menu. But once again, push that in, push the shutter button, takes you there. Let's say you want to change from video. Now you're in camera, and you can change the camera settings. You scroll through them with the on-off button, and you click on them with the upper button. And it takes you through every control I just took you through on the back, just in a manual way. Now, let's say you want out of it and you don't want to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can just click the shutter button and hold it in, and it will take you back. And then once again, your mode change button is here. That's burst, that's time lapse, and that's default mode or video mode. Alright, that should conclude this video, but I am going to throw in a little bit of an extra. If you want external power and you want a small vlogging outfit, this is what you need. It's right here. It is a Sarasonic mic. It's got the standard 3/8 of an inch plug. Pull this back just a little bit. Now, you're also going to need this. This is the GoPro. It's official GoPro because there's no generic model of it. And you plug this in here and then plug this into your GoPro, and it makes for a vlogging system. You do not want to depend upon the GoPro's audio. GoPro's audio absolutely sucks, and it makes for a bad video. Now, another good mic to use if you've got a bigger vlogging system is the Rode. Let's pull this back a little bit. I'm going to get a wider screen. Let me push focus on my camera. There we go. This is the Rode mic. It's the best small mic out there. It's just not as small as the Saramonic. It's better. It's a better mic. But when I'm in that tight situation, the Saramonic works just fine. It works way better than the GoPro. You've got the standard plug. You've got the little, so it don't vibrate. Once again, you have to use this plug here to plug in any mic. Now, this is my vlogging system right here. Comes with a handle that turns into a tripod. You can get them in any GoPro store. And I like this tripod because it's spread apart a lot. It's real wide in its base. You can turn this just by pushing the buttons. You've got a little handheld rig that you can use for your GoPro. It's an aluminum housing. It's got a 52mm filter on the front. And you can put any 52mm filter on there. I've got all the ND filters. I've got fluorescent filters. I've got filters that go underwater, like your red, your pink, and your orange filter that go underwater. You can take, and when you plug this into your GoPro, you put it up here and put a rubber band around it, or zip tie it, or I've seen people glue this up there, but I don't want anything permanent. But that's a real good vlogging system that you can use. Now, this battery actually works in the GoPro. It's one of the only ones that I've heard that works in the GoPro. When you download your firmware for the GoPro Hero 6, it takes out all third-party battery options. So you have to use the GoPro battery, which is an official GoPro battery. It looks like all smart trees. There's my GoPro. Looks like that. These are $20. You can get 3 of these for $20 with a 3-charger system. I have 3 GoPro batteries and 3 Smart Tree batteries, and I've got a power bank, and I've got another valuable little product that, if you've got time and you want to stick around, I'll show you. It's called a I can't remember what it's called. It's kind of hard to find on the internet. I had to do some serious searching, but it's the refuel, and it allows you to film with your GoPro up to 8 hours. Plugs into the side here, and it really works. I'll even show you. Screw this. Take the frame off. Now I'm going to turn my GoPro off before I put it in here. Just push this in on the side until it beeps. Now you have to take the door off. Push that in, pull it down to where it pops up, and then gently turn it and pull it at the same time. Pull it out and turn it just a little bit. You've got a C-clamp there, and it C-clamps onto that little bar. Then just put that right in there, slide it up, pop that on top, and let's see if it works. Pops right on, and I'm fueling it with my refuel right now. And it lasts for 8 hours. You can see it makes a decorative, larger GoPro out of your GoPro. This is how you charge it. They say this thing's waterproof. This thing is quite tight. I'm not going to trust it by taking it underwater. I'm really not. but they say it's waterproof. The GoPro is waterproof. But I'm not going to trust it with this. I'll trust it with some rain and stuff. It comes with a tripod screw, or you can take this out and it comes with a GoPro mount as well. Just slide that right out of there. You can slide it right back in. It comes with a GoPro mount adapter too. I've got it in my camera bag. I tend to keep it on this because I can use the little screw adapters that screw onto there and then screw onto the GoPro. Alright, that should give you some tips about the GoPro Hero 6. I've got it on Pro Tune, so we'll go back to film. And I hope you enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit subscribe. Give me some hippie love by hitting that like button or that thumbs up. And I hope to see you on the next video. Later.